Before we get started, I just want to first of all thank Channel 3 for being here. This is a critical issue for us in Granby, and I think you'll recognize when we're done it's a matter of critical interest, we think, for everybody in Connecticut. Before I get started, I just want to just recognize some other folks who are here. First, my colleagues on the Board of Selectmen, Peggy Chappell and Mark Newman, Representative Anderson, our town manager, Mike Walsh, all of you citizens who are here. I'm very grateful for your input into this process and your willingness to be thoughtful and respectful throughout the challenges we've been facing. So we're very grateful for that and for your support. Chief, you, as always, thank you. And Chief Oates, who has helped us in this process, provide some expert testimony. So here's what's going to happen this morning. I have a prepared statement, which I'm going to read. Those of you who know me well know reading statements isn't my forte, but that's what I'm going to start with because I think it provides a great summary. There are copies of the statement here to take with you, and there's also copies of this exhibit. When I'm done with the prepared statement, I'm going to talk a little bit more, try to put some of this in perspective, and then if you have any questions from the media, I'll be happy to answer. So this is a statement that we issued about a day or so ago. At its January 9th meeting, the Connecticut Siding Council took a straw poll of its members regarding petition 1637, which is a proposal to develop a 4.99 megawatt battery energy storage system at 100 Salmon Brook Street in Granby. During that meeting, 2 members of the council stated that they were inclined to vote to deny the petition, citing serious environmental and other public safety concerns. Other members of the council likewise expressed concerns, but nonetheless voted to instruct council staff to draft a proposed approval of this petition. Thus, based on the results of this straw poll, it appears the council, despite concerns raised by its own members, is poised to approve the project at its next meeting, which we believe to be January 23rd. It is difficult to imagine a more inappropriate site for a battery energy storage facility. The Salmon Brook site is surrounded by high-density residential development, is adjacent to a busy retail shopping center, and is located on a groundwater aquifer that supplies potable water to the vast majority of Granby. We are dismayed by the direction the council appears to be taking and hope the council members will deliberate more carefully before making a decision. We use the word dismayed thoughtfully and purposely. This project involves clear, significant public health and safety risks that can be completely and easily avoided with no discernible impact on the state's goals related to renewable energy and power grid resiliency. The council need only follow a safety guideline it utilized 2 months ago to deny similar but smaller energy storage projects in New London and Waterford. The public safety concerns revolve primarily around the risk of a thermal runaway event. If you're not familiar with that term, conduct a quick internet search, and in very short order, you will recognize the magnitude of what can happen if there is a failure at one of these facilities. Spoiler alert, we've done the work for you. In short, the failures can result in storage containers igniting and exploding, and then burning at temperatures that make it impossible to extinguish or control. We recognize that thermal runaway events may be statistically rare, but they do happen. The risk of an event occurring cannot be eliminated. It is frankly the council's job to acknowledge this risk and to protect against it. The International Association of Fire Chiefs has issued guidance regarding response to thermal runaway events. In that guidance, the fire chiefs recommend that first responders establish a clear zone of at least 300 feet around the perimeter of the facility. The intent of the clear zone is obviously to protect life and property. In November 2004, the Siting Council utilized this guidance from the fire chiefs to deny smaller battery energy storage facilities in New London and Waterford because there were property lines within 300 feet of the facilities proposed in those communities. The same circumstances exist at the Salmon Brook site. Not only do we have property lines within 300 feet, there are at least 4 occupied buildings within 300 feet containing offices, healthcare providers, restaurants, and retail businesses. There is simply no justifiable reason for not affording the citizens of Granby the same protections the council provided in New London and Waterford. A thermal runaway event at the Salmon Brook site will also have significant impacts on Granby's water supply. In addition to establishing minimum clear zones, current emergency response guidelines call for the application of water to the battery containers for the duration of a thermal runaway event. KCE, who is the proposed developer of the Salmon Brook site, agrees with these guidelines. In its application to the council, KCE stated, and I am quoting, "During defensive firefighting efforts, application of high volumes of water from an appropriate distance may be applied to the outside of the container to help cool the unit and prevent further reactions or fire from developing." And according to KCE, any event, a runaway event in a single container can last up to 24 hours. There are 8 battery containers proposed for this site. So, if thermal runaway event occurs here at this site, it is likely that thousands, if not tens of thousands of gallons of water will be applied to the battery containers that house substantial amounts of hazardous materials. This water and the hazardous materials that are mixed with it must, under the current design of this project, enter either the groundwater aquifer that supplies most of our drinking water or the Salmon Brook and Farmington River tributary system, or both. We appreciate the challenges the council faces in implementing Connecticut's energy policy. Carrying out these policies while at the same time protecting local communities can be a difficult task. But the decision with respect to this site at Salmon Brook should be an easy one. The battery energy storage system's purported benefits to the grid system can be provided at any number of other sites located in proximity to the transmission line. The developers specifically acknowledged this during a presentation that they made to our Board of Selectmen in August of this year in this room. We asked them that question. The answer was yes, we could provide these benefits anywhere up and down the transmission line. So, under the state's regulatory system, we have no authority or ability to protect our own citizens. We must rely on the Siting Council to do so. With respect to the Salmon Brook site under consideration, we aren't asking for much. We're merely asking the council to enforce the same safety standards it applied in New London and Waterford, and err on the side of caution and protecting public safety, especially since the proposed benefits of the energy storage facility can be provided at other less sensitive sites. If in fact, and I'm looking at you, Representative Anderson, under the current regulatory scheme, this is in fact too much to ask of the council, and the council either lacks the authority to reject sites that pose these kinds of risk, as the presiding officer of the council seemed to indicate, and or the council isn't obligated in any way to apply consistent safety standards across the state. This system is broken, it's seriously broken, and it needs to be fixed. All right, that concludes my prepared statement. As incredible as it is to believe, this is an ongoing event at Moss Landing in California. This is a battery energy storage facility that approximately 6 p.m. last night, Eastern Standard Time, caught fire. This is the second fire in the last 3 years at this facility. As of 4 o'clock this morning, according to news reports, Eastern Time, this fire was still burning. In California, as a result of this fire, we're not talking about the other fires that have been in the news. They have evacuated approximately 7,000 acres. They've closed roads and they've closed schools. Obviously, I don't want to overplay it. I don't want to be overly dramatic. This is a much larger facility in California than what is proposed here. But the point is pretty simple. The risk that these facilities pose is real. It's not speculative. And no one, in my opinion, with any conscience whatsoever, could deny that this risk exists or could try to minimize it, which is, I believe, what the council is actually doing in this case. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to take just a second and I'm going to walk you through an exhibit that depicts the information in part that we presented to the Siding Council. So you can kind of get a feeling of what we're talking about. And I want you to take that picture of this risk in your mind and apply it to this site. Because this is what we're talking about. So this is the Salmon Brook site. Get everybody familiar with what we're talking about. This is Salmon Brook Street. This is the Stop and Shop shopping center. Greenway apartment homes are here. The Grand apartment homes are here. This is the YMCA. These are two existing single-family residences that are served by private wells. These are two properties in which the wells were recently abandoned or could be reestablished, and this is another private well here. This site doesn't even take direct access to Salmon Brook. To get access to this site, both to build it and more importantly to respond to an event like that, the first responders have to come down Mill Pond Road. Okay? Mill Pond Road is the only access for the people who live in Greenway Village. They have to come down Mill Pond Road and cross through a recorded easement that falls between these two buildings. You can't see it from there, but take my word for it. In this area, there is parking, and there's a drive-through that feeds through the same area where the emergency responders would have to come through to respond to an event here. To point out the other things that are important on this exhibit, this is the mapped wetlands on this site. The wetlands actually extend below her, but they're not shown here because this is an exhibit that the developer provided that we superimposed on an aerial photograph. So the developer did not and was not required to show the wetlands extending here. This little dotted line here is a perimeter fence that's supposed to secure the facility, and each of these little, you can count them, 8 battery containers. Again, according to the applicant, in the unfortunate event like that, they could, each one, the incident could last up to 24 hours. These two, this L-shaped thing and this oval-shaped thing are the detention basins designed by the applicant to catch water. By design, when they catch water, the water that would be poured onto this facility in the emergency event, they are designed to discharge the water into the groundwater system below them. So one of two things will happen in a thermal runaway event to the water and the materials it mixes with. These will either be designed at a capacity that will handle that water and discharge it directly into the groundwater system, or they're going to be insignificant. I'm just going to tell you, they're going to be insignificant. They're not designed to withstand tens of thousands of gallons of water poured on it for days at a time. So it will sheet off the property and enter what is the Salmon Brook and Farmington Water River System. This site slopes this way and this way. In both events, the water ends up in the system. This entire site sits in our aquifer protection zone. There's a reason we have an aquifer protection zone. It's because when water enters the groundwater, it has the potential to contaminate the system. And the water we use to drink and everything else in the community. Last thing I will show you on this purple line is a 300-foot roughly from the fence line that the International Association of Fire Chiefs recommends as the clear zone. So if an event happens here, the clear zone, there are buildings, as I pointed out to you, in the clear zone. There are wetlands in the clear zone. There are forested areas in the clear zone. There is part of the Salmon Brook and Farmington River tributary system in the clear zone. The minimum safe distance to remove people and property. All right, bear with me, because I want you to get a feel for what it was like to watch the straw poll as one of your officials who was charged with helping minimize the risk to our community. So the presiding officer starts with each council member and asks where they are inclined to go and what they're thinking. The first council member says, "This project involves significant safety environmental risks. I'm voting to deny." And I'm going, okay. That report not too long ago that they approved 98% of these projects, maybe we're starting to turn this around a little bit. The second council member says the same thing. Not going to approve a site that has these concerns. I'm, of course, paraphrasing. But then the next council member speaks and says, "I'm okay with this project, as long as there's a condition that protects the habitat of the long-eared bat, and as long as there's a condition that ensures that the sound emitting from this project meets the state standards." Now think about that for a second. We're talking about the safety of our first responders, the safety of our citizens, and the protection of our groundwater, and the council is worried about the long-eared bat. Several other members then say, "Yep, we're good generally with that." Several others are clearly struggling, but they're begrudgingly willing to approve the project if there's some talk around access issues and stuff like that. And then the presiding officer speaks. Now, at this point, my head's almost on the table going, what do we do? And again, I'm paraphrasing, but the presiding officer says, "I don't like this site. I think there are better suited sites out there. But this is the site the developer brought us. And it meets the guidelines, so I don't see any reason to deny it." And I'm as flabbergasted as I am standing in front of you. First of all, it's not true. It doesn't even meet the guidelines the council set itself 60 days ago in New London and Waterford. So you can see, obviously, why we're concerned. And I would submit, again, Representative Anders and others in the state who are watching this, even if you don't live in Granby, you should be concerned. Because if the council carries out its intention and approves this project, we established in this state a regulatory scheme in which we took away the ability of local officials to protect their own citizens, and we handed it to a council. And the very best case is a council who cares more about the long-eared bat than it does about our first responders' safety, and can, with impunity, without responding to anybody, establish different minimum safety standards across the state. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is we took this authority to protect you all and handed it to a council who turned around and handed it to the developer and said, "Well, this is the site the developer chose, so that's what we're going to do." I'm hoping the council is listening. And our ask, I think, again, is pretty simple. Tell the developer to find a more appropriate site for this project, which they admitted they could do. That's your job. At the end of the day, that's your job. Do you have any questions? All right. We're not going to take questions from the audience. I'll stay as long as you want me to afterwards. Did I miss anything? You all. Did I miss anything? All right. Thank you for coming.